Now, breastfeeding is more decent than other displays of breasts. I think this is a good argument. So on beaches, there are very erotic displays of breasts, maybe indecent, very skimpy bikinis. In popular culture, very often there are erotic pictures, depicting women and their breasts. And these are often in public places. So how can you deny women the right to actually functionally feed their babies with their breasts and maybe expose a slight sliver of skin while allowing this culture to proceed with, sexual images of the breast? Another argument, public breastfeeding spreads beneficial breastfeeding culture. So when you actually are breastfeeding out in a public park, you are showing the world what it is and what it isn't. And usually it is not a full exposure of the breast. It's a very, maybe you can see a slight amount of breast. If you do it right, you can cover most of the breast. And the baby's head is actually covering the breast as well. If people know this, then they'll know it's not such a big issue. And also, it will encourage other women to pick up the practice as well. And if we think that breastfeeding babies is important, then spreading the practice like this is probably a good idea. So breastfeeding by nature is a discrete activity, another argument, very concealed. Breastfeeding is about the baby, not onlookers. If an onlooker wants to look, what's their problem? Shouldn't they just be averting their eyes if they seriously have an issue with this, if they think it's indecent? Probably. Public breastfeeders are not exhibitionists. They're doing it for the baby. They're not doing it to exhibit to anybody else. Onlookers can easily look away from breastfeeders. I already went over that. So on women's rights, more arguments on this article. Ban on breastfeeding violates female reproductive rights. So I think I touched on this earlier, but essentially a woman has a right to reproduce and to do what is in the best interest of her baby. And if feeding the baby in public is important to that baby's health, she should have the right to be able to do that. And then this is extended in this argument, breastfeeding in private is a barrier to movement. So if we insist that women only breastfeed in private, but their babies are erratically eating very often at different times, then that basically confines women to the private spaces and doesn't allow them to get out in public. Because how are they going to be able to breastfeed in public if there is some kind of a ban on it? Or it's even just looked down upon, which is another part of this equation. It's not just about a ban, it's also about public acceptance. So should people be looking, this debate is about, should people be looking on this as something that's acceptable? So on tolerance, we should just continue a little bit here. So those offended by breastfeeding should tolerate it. Here's an argument we have. Many things offend individuals. Wearing baggy clothing, sporting tattoos or piercings, or wearing revealing clothing are all some of them. But this does not justify banning these items. The same goes for breastfeeding. Discomfort is no justification for a ban. We allow things often like swastikas in public places. We allow things like, let's see, provocative t-shirts. We allow all kinds of things in the public space, and in many places we allow even burqas, the face covering veil, which is a debate we have recently. Why can't we allow for something that's provocative, maybe to some rare minority, like breastfeeding, and just force the people that are upset about it to just tolerate it or look the other way? And I like this little argument here. One says, draws the comparison, he says, if breastfeeders must cover, then meat eaters should eat under the table. So the argument here is that this is comparable to vegetarians having a problem with meat eaters, and so if that's the case, maybe we should just have those meat eaters eat under the table because they might offend vegetarians. The same goes for breastfeeding. Just because people are offended by it does not mean that they have the right to suppress those individuals from acting in what they view as their and their baby's best interest. This is enough for now. This is Brooks Lindsay. I hope you gained a little bit from this. And check out our article. It is fairly in-depth, and I've actually left the con side very empty. So if you want to, intentionally, so if you want to jump in and make some contributions, go ahead and do so.